part one of this series, we show how an offense works and the rules underneath the offense that makes it trigger and all that logic. In part two, we show how Qradar extracts. We use an example of a parser already created by IBM and how it extracts the different custom properties and how the mapping works and all that logic was explained. And now we're going to use that knowledge to create our very own parser. When do you have to do that? When do you need to go into the DSM editor? You need to go for two reasons. One is let's say that you want to modify an existing one from this extends list of out-of-the-box parsers. Because let's say that there are new properties that you want to extract. Let's say that the vendor is launching new properties and IBM hasn't updated the parser, and you don't want to wait for IBM to do that, or there might be some reason, or most likely there is a unique application that is very rare that IBM doesn't have a parser for, and you need to create your own parser. So you start by going in here. When you launch the DSM editor, the first step that you're going to do is you're going to create a new parser. You give it a name. I'm going to call it test. In your case, it will be obviously more meaningful than that. And that is pre-selected in there, and say, yep, go for it. There's nothing in here. And you need to grab, probably from the log activity tab, you're going to get a bunch of unknown. So you grab all those, and you're going to paste them by clicking in this button in here. These become highlighted, and I'm going to paste those logs in here, right? Again, this is a very simple case where we see the timestamp, and we have an event ID, that's the host name, the originator, a category, and a username. Again, very, very simple. But when we save that, we put in the check. Qradar is telling in the job progress report, say, well, you're not too far. I cannot get anything out of it. I don't know how to extract anything from that. The first step that you need to do is to create some custom properties, and here are the default one. The most important one are event ID and event category. Let's do the event ID first. So we're going to override the system behavior, and we are going to put a regex that will grab this first part. Right? Let me copy that, paste it in here, and what we want to grab is everything that is there until the blank space, and that's so we put the capture group, the parentheses, we put a square bracket, the caret or blank space, closing square bracket, the plus sign, and we close the capture group. There's only one capture group, so it's $1, and voila. So we have a mapping for the event ID, an extraction for the event ID, and the progress report is saying, yeah, well, out of those things I was able to parse 4 things, but I still do not know what it is. So this still will show as either unknown or stored in Qradar, because I do not know. I cannot make a sense. I cannot tell you what event ID this is. And to do that, you need to do the mapping, but at least remember, for the mapping you need at least event ID and event category. So let's actually do the event category. As before, that's the piece that we want to get to, and not everything has to be regex. Remember that if this is JSON, XML, key value pair, etc., it's a lot easier than this. Actually, these are very simple regex. And remember that I have a file with some regex. I call it regex cheat sheet from my Qradar custom properties, in case that you are interested into that. So there's a video that's mentioned that. So I'm going to do the same as before, and I'm going to need the plus sign and the closing parentheses, and I grab that. Again, only one capture group. Click OK, and voila. So now we have those 2 things, the event category, event name. We can go into the event mapping, but let's actually do a little bit more of the job and get the username. And by the way, you don't have to have the same in this example, because it's very simple. You see a match between, well, event category is called category event ID is called event uppercase ID, and the username here is, uppercase username. But they don't have too much. It could be that this thing is called name, and then that's your username. Well, you'll put it in here. But these are the pre-populated standard categories that IBM has, right? Very same regex. So we got the username in there. That's the $1, and we're good. So we have 3 properties. Let's say that you have very many, so you need to go and define how to extract the different properties from your logs, right? Say that you have all that job done. Again, some parsing, but no. If we scroll here to the right, we should see username somewhere right there, right? Just for completeness, you can actually click in here, and let's say that I'm not interested in that destination MAC, get some of the conditions in here. I don't want destination MAC. What else? I don't want destination IP, so you put whatever you want. And let's say I want username, so I scroll here to the bottom and I have username. I don't want to put username to the top, so I grab it from where those dots are and bring it here and put it, let's say right there, and click update, and you see that I have extracted the username, the event category, and the event ID. So now I can go and do the mapping. Now the DSM editor in version 1.4 and on is smart enough that when I click on event mapping and click plus here, it automatically finds that out of those 4, there are, let me move to the side, there are 3 unique combinations of demo 1 and category 1. And notice that demo 3 appears 2 times, so the system is smart enough to say, well, these are the 3 combinations. How do you want me to create the mapping? So you can actually go here, and most likely you will need to choose a QID. You're going to be creating in this, if the stuff is new, you will be creating a new QID. If this is something that exists, you want to assign to existing categories, well, you choose those. So in this case, I'm going to click here to create one. I'm going to call it, test. And I'm going to do this kind of quickly, but here you need to put a description, because remember, when in the previous section, I showed that the QID record contains the log source type, the high-level category, the low-level category, the severity, and the description. And that's how you actually get that to be there. So you need to select a category, high-level category that is meaningful to what you are doing. And again, I'm selecting here authentication because I don't know better. And you need to select, the low-level category that is appropriate, because remember, your rules are going to be looking for these things, so you need to do a good job on selecting those, and you're going to specify whatever severity makes sense. And you click here, save, right? And you click here, OK, and notice that it creates a new QID name, and it's right there. And you click create. Now you have 2 more that you need to go through. Let's say that this is another category. So I'm going to choose a QID. And again, I'm going to create this one, and I'm going to call it test2, description, whatever is the description, the high-level category, appropriately so. And this example is actually very, very simple. The low level, click save, click OK, click create. Now you have 1 left. And you're going to have many more combinations in a real case scenario. So you need to do a good job on selecting the creation of the Q record with the right information. So we're going to create a new one because one does not exist. Let's call this test 3, description, whatever, the high level category, whatever makes sense on the actual event, and the low level category for that high level category, let's say that is this one, right? And the severity, I'm going to make it 3. So you click OK and you click create, and you have done your job, because now notice that you get completion here, because nothing is either yellow or red. Everything is being parsed, so there's nothing red, and everything is mapped, so there's nothing yellow. So you are good with your actual DSM creation. So let's go and save it, and that is actually done. Now let's say that you have a new event that comes and it's going to come in a different format. Let me actually grab an example for that. You're working with your parser, and then you see that for this log source type, some of these things go store. Why does those things store? I mean, let me actually paste them here so you'll see what is actually happening. I'm going to take all this and I'm going to paste these logs. Notice that these logs, these two are the same, are similar to the other, but in here the event ID comes with that different format, event underscore identifier demo 4. So if we click here, we see that the progress report is telling me, well, you know what, you are not parsing one of those events, and therefore there will not be a mapping for it. Let's actually go ahead and fix that. So the first thing that we need to do is go into the event properties, and we're going to grab another event ID. Let's go to the top here. Where are my event ID? Here they are, right? And we're going to add another expression for capturing that, because that format is different. It's event identifier, right? So no problem. You add a second condition. You got some text in there that helps you with that, and you're gonna put, you know, now that comes. Let me see if I do this right. So you paste it in there, and it's the same simple regex that we've been using. Capture group, square bracket, caret space, close the square bracket, plus sign. So that grabs that and is the capture group. Is a one regular expression, so it's still capture group 1, even though it is the second expression. And when we do that, it say, oh no, okay, now I can parse that. I'm good with it. And notice that the first one doesn't capture the top one, but the two below, and this one captures the one on the top. Very good. Now when we click here on the plus sign, the system, or actually I click on the wrong place. On event mapping, I click on the plus sign, and the system is smart enough to say, well, you know, I have two mappings in here that you can you need to work with, right? This one is this demo 4 that I got here with category 3, and you do as we show in the previous example. So I'm going to do this rather quickly. I'm going to create a new one. Again, this will be test 4, I believe. This event ID. Select the appropriate high-level category. From that, select the right low-level category, the severity, the description. You put, so your record will be created. You click OK, and it's saying, well, one more, please. Once you do here, create. There's one more to do, and do the same thing, right? Create a new one. Test 5. The description, put what is meaningful description for the QID record to be created. From the high-level category, select the right low-level category, the severity. Click Save, click OK, click Create, and you are good. Now all your events are back again, parse and map, right? So let's actually do one more example that is a little bit more complicated than that, and that has to do with events that are multi-line. These are events that are single line, in which everything is, the events are separated by carry return line feed, you know, the \n, as you can read in this description in here. Let's do next an example where the event is multi-line. Let's actually save this one. Let's create a new one. Start from scratch. We're going to create one example with multi-line. Let's call this one create new. We're going to call it test2. That's the one we want. Select. And let me paste in here that multi-line log. So this is actually a multi-line event with just two events. Notice the timestamp here. If we scroll down, that event finished there, and this is the second one. But because it's multi-line, and I haven't told the DSM editor about that, it's saying, well, I got 53, which are the 53 lines that are in here. Yeah. That I have no way of actually knowing how to parse any one of those. By the way, these are Windows logs that do not come from WinCollect, that know how to deal with multi-line or snare or any one of the supported ones. These days came that way in multi-line. So the trick here is to help the DSM editor by telling it, well, the delimiter here is not going to be a carry return line feed, it's going to be something else. Right? And let's say that you go in here and you identify that at the end of it, there's something meaningful here. Let's say asterisk, or something that you can relate to and say, well, yeah, I can tell you what it is. And then you put that there, boom, the stuff is actually done and ready for you. But let's say that you don't have it. Like in this case, there's nothing that is actually meaningful. Well, you can help the DSM editor by explaining, well, that's the structure of the actual event. And you go here back in edit mode, and let's say that I'm going to put here double caret, for example, right? And over here, I'm going to put a double caret. I'm going to say to the DSM editor, the separator here is a double caret. It has to be something unique that, of course, doesn't show up in your in the normal logs, right? So notice that it's now saying instead of 53 lines, it's only 3. And I believe that my problem is that I have an extra line, a white line here. And that's what it says that as another one. So let me actually go here and delete that extra line. Yeah, that line in there, we don't actually need that. So I click here, check, and we have only 2 events as we expect. So now we can do, now that we have helped the DSM editor by saying that's the structure, and now you can actually separate those, we can, select the different properties. So let's say that we want to select in here, let's say the source address, destination address, any one of those. Destination address, say that we want to get that one, right? And that's going to be the destination IP. So you go here and overwrite the default, and you're going to be typing destination address. Let me actually copy it from here. And then the regular expression for capturing that will be go to where the next character is, and then grab, let me put the capture group here, left square bracket, the caret, \s, close the bracket, plus, let me see if I got that right. Yeah, and that grabs the actual, it's only one capture group, so it's $1. We click OK. And by doing so, we have been able to now parse that. You'll do the same thing with the, as we've done in the previous video, and this video is already way too long. So you do the other parts with the event ID, the category, and do the mapping, etc. But I just wanted to show you how you deal with multi-line events. I hope that this serves as a good introduction on how the DSM editor works in Qradar.